What's up, world? Welcome back to Authentically Us, the podcast where we talk about what it means to be authentic in everything that we do, in every space that you occupy. Hey, I'm one of the hosts here. I'm Conroy Smith, and we got Tony. Tony, say what's up to the people.
I am always here. What's going on, y'all?
Guys, we have a great episode. We got a real talk today, but it's going to be a unique real talk. Tony, can you let the people know why? What's going on?
It's unique because we're doing this thing called Book Club.
We're
just going to go through different books and spend an episode chopping it up and sharing our thoughts. So today we are discussing Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates.
Ta-Nehisi Coates.
Ta-Nehisi.
Yes. I've listened to a lot of podcasts with him on it, and that's how I know. So for those who don't know, it's Ta-Nehisi Coates. And because he has in the book, you'll find out like a different upbringing. But let's jump right into this book. First of all, this book is dense.
Yes.
And not necessarily like it's a hard read. It's that like every line, every paragraph, you can't check out essentially. Because if you check out, you'll miss a story, you'll miss an experience. And that was kind of my favorite part because Tony and I, we like to do audiobooks. And I had to be locked in for this one because I didn't want to miss anything. What was your experience like listening to it?
I mean, I think you're so right. Like, it's not that you can't check out, but like you won't want to check out, because he's talking about his experience as a black man in America, and I love the way he constantly brings it back to his body, because I think we often forget that the black experience is an embodied experience, and our body remembers the trauma that we endure, the trauma that our ancestors endured, and so he really reminded us that the struggle against the black body involves the whole body, not just an intellectual thing that we call race.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about that. You've said that on multiple episodes about how what do you say? Trauma knows no time, right?
Yes,
and he definitely captures that throughout the episode, or not episode, but throughout the book. A couple of things I wrote down from chapter 1 is like he witnessed some crazy things as a child, and I have too. But what the book made me realize is that racism is real, and some people experience it more than others. I would say some of the experiences he talks about just in chapter 1, we didn't go through. Like, not to that extent, right? The racism that we've experienced is growing up in our small town looks different than what he experienced, growing up in New York. So that was a big thing for me to kind of like, it just took me back, and I was like, wow, like I already knew racism was real and I knew people experience it differently, but like he put it so eloquently in the words that like made me sit back and like, man, I had it rough, but like people had it worse.
right. And speaking of that, like the one line he says, race is the son of racism, not the father. And I remember listening to that line and being like stopped in my tracks. Because it's true. this concept of race was born out of racism.
Mm-hmm.
Racism wasn't born out of race. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you know, race was basically to define who has power, who was white, and everyone else. That's why you often had ethnicities fighting to be white because they knew the only way to have power, have a stance in society was to be considered white.
Mm-hmm. You know what? Another. He talked a lot about classism. He talked a lot about redlining and just things that he realized from a very young age. One thing he said in the first chapter, he said school essentially was a means to escape from death, and I was like, wow. And I think about how that is true for a lot of black and brown bodies, that like them going to school is giving them a chance to live even longer because they're not in the streets. Them going to school is them giving them a chance to get an education, and it's a way to escape from death. Maybe I know when I was growing up, there was crazy situations with like drug dealers and police busting down doors that I've experienced. I've witnessed firsthand. But going to school, it's like a safe haven. It's almost like a whole nother world. And that was one of the reasons, now I think about it, that I loved going to school. There was maybe 4 years, 5 years straight, I never missed a day. Even if I was sick, I would still go. Wouldn't do that now. Shout out to COVID. But um, it was a way to escape from my reality. Um, some critics say about this book that it could be described as a letter to the world, right? Um, how do you think his message throughout this book resonates to the readers and is a letter to the world?
So I think I think it's a letter to the world because it's his story. It's what he has lived. He's not just giving you his opinion, but like this is what he experienced. He
Mm.
experienced a Jesus loving, kind friend that was engaged, get shot by police, and the police um just letting it go. Like, and so it's hard to refute this. Uh but like this this read is not for the faint of heart. Like you come across hard truths and you have to ask yourself, are you ready to sit with this? Because you can't just dismiss it because you don't like his story. It is his story. And it's uh most black and brown body stories. And so it's a letter to the world, to the white world, to say, see me and hear me. But it's even a letter to us saying, I see you.
Mm. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's exactly what it was. It is a letter to us that I see you. And there's nothing like being seen. I think we take that for granted. He talks a lot about okay, one question. So he mentioned the Mecca. When he talked about Mecca, is he talking about Howard?
Oh yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought.
That's yeah, often a lot of black people will refer to Howard as the Mecca.
So I've already had FOMO of not going to an HBCU. And then after reading
Facts.
this, I was just like, I'm jealous I didn't go to Howard.
Bro, after reading this, I was like, all right, Connor's gonna come back to the East Coast, and we gotta spend like a weekend at Howard.
Yes,
Like,
I literally was. I was literally
yes,
thinking the same thing.
yes,
I definitely. I want to. I just want to go and experience the the beauty in it. The beauty in.
yes.
You know, we talked about this in our one of our recent episodes about the Black Card. I want to see the beauty in being able to go to a campus full of black and brown bodies that can just be, and
Right.
whatever that looks like, and can just be. They can be artists, they can be athletes, they can be nerds, they can be in the anime, or they can, you know, whatever they want. And I would just love to go witness that and just sit in that and just watch. Because, you know, he talked about his experience and him being from New York and only witnessing like ground zero, witnessing the wildest of the wild type of black people, and then going to Howard and seeing a black person from France or a black person from Africa and being able to have these conversations with them and expand his mind. It was really cool because what I felt like what was happening is we kept seeing his mind expand, right, on the black diaspora. And I feel like I've gone through that multiple times in my life just by traveling. And it was cool to see he experienced that at the Mecca in Howard.
Yeah, I often dreamt of going to Howard. Um, my grandmother lives in DC, and she went to Howard for graduate school, and I always, you know, not growing up with the black side of my family, I always had this feeling that if I went to Howard, I would finally see blackness in all of its beauty.
Did you even, so you said you had that thought. What about when you, like, you know, we were getting ready to graduate college or high school, excuse me, and looking at colleges? Was Howard or even any HBCU, was that ever like in like running?
No, because my mom said if I went to college, I had to go to ship. So I was like, all right.
I never had the thought of going to an HBCU. The church I used to be at in high school, it was part of a denomination that had, you know, churches, and often HBCUs, actually most colleges were founding off of Christian principles, and most HBUs is founded off of a black Christian principle mostly. And I was like, no, I just never thought, because I'm like, I wanted to play sports at a high level, and there's none of it existed until now, right? Where Howard is actually, you know, well known for track and field, and Jackson State, because of Deion Sanders, is now well known for football. So I'm like, dang, if I could go back now, I would have considered going to Howard. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love my college experience, but there's nothing like being around that many black people. I think it would have been a culture shock, 100%, growing up where we grew up.
Right.
Right. But I think it would have been a beautiful thing for sure.
Absolutely. So I'm curious, in chapter 2, um he Ta-Nehisi talks about finding his friend's mom, emailing her and connecting with her after his friend died. Like, I know for me, when I heard that, I got real emotional. How did you feel when he talked about that?
Yeah, it was like I said, this book is heavy, and I thought that part was heavy because that specific friend, you're referring to Prince, right?
Yes.
That
Yes.
specific friend helped expand Ta-Nehisi's mind, right? And it was just somebody he was just kind of fascinated by. And to hear like that happened to him after Ta-Nehisi had like he was married. I think he had a kid at that point, and then they get that email and go to visit his mom. I thought was this. I just thought it was a lot. It was definitely emotional. What the mom said about Prince, I thought was just beautiful. How she just kind of talked about who he really was, why he was the way he was, and how it just allowed us, the readers, to understand just different. I can't remember where Prince was from, where that family was from. Do you remember? Like, it wasn't Africa. Was it Africa? Or no, where were they from?
So I don't know country of origin,
Uh huh.
but I want to say they lived somewhere in Pennsylvania.
Yes, you're right. For some reason, I want to say like somewhere in the Caribbean or something like that. But um, just to hear the mom talk about how much she, you know, loved him, but it also broke my heart because it was almost like it wasn't almost like nothing happened to the cop. I didn't realize Prince George's County Police Force was like that. Was like just doing things actively multiple times, and then essentially he just got a slap on the wrist, and that just is frustrating because that has happened way too many times. We've seen it happen in our lives, our adult lives, way too many times, where a black or brown body is killed and that police officer gets a slap on the wrist. And it was frustrating, and also my heart broke for the mom because she was just like, right, like there's nothing we could do. And that's just like, that was
Yeah,
tough for sure.
yeah, and it brings me back to a song. I forget the song, but it's by Kevin Gates, and he just asks this simple question: When will my when um when will my body not speak louder than my words? Like Prince was an amazing guy, but just by his black body, he was seen as a threat. And like no matter what, because of his black body, they could claim a threat and the police officers get off scot free. And it's like, wait, like, when will this narrative change?
Yeah. I did want to talk. I did want to ask you because you have a
Um,
son who.
I
Oh,
I
sorry.
think one thing he did so beautifully is throughout the book he kept coming back to when his son witnessed um I forget what murder and said I gotta go, like cause it was like every time that was brought back up I just got chills of like, yep, like that is insane to me. So
Well, on that, I wanted to ask, like, because you have a son, and he's going to be tan. You know, he's going to be what? He's going to be 3/4 or 1/4 black, but he's going to have black features. And Ta-Nehisi Coates talks about the talk that many black parents have to have with their children about how to navigate racism. Um, how are you nervous about that talk, or like how do you plan on delivering or having that talk with your son?
uh that's that's a hard question for me because uh, I almost feel like there's a little shame in my response because part of me is thankful that my son looks more white than um like he just looks like he has more white features than black features. Um if you know what to look for, you can definitely tell that like he's mixed with something. Um but I think I'm glad because I don't really feel like I have to worry as much. Um and that's probably naive in me. And I realized that um but I'm also nervous because he's not going to understand why this conversation is gonna need to happen. Um, needing to teach him like what the inward means and to not allow others to say it to him, and just these are complexities that we shouldn't have to teach little kids, but we do because of this world that we live in, you know.
Mm-hmm. It's a rough conversation, and we pray that the world would be better by the time he gets our age or even high school. That there are things and places and systems that can help him. So, I did want to talk about a little bit about chapter 2. He said a couple lines that I had to write down. He was like, I know that whenever I saw the police, something had already gone wrong. And it was like almost so it was just eye opening that like, wow, something has already gone wrong. Not that they're coming to fix something, like something's already gone wrong. And then he also said something about that just struck me by surprise. He said Manhattan, when he was talking about New York, Manhattan used to be a place where there was like slave sales. And now it's this big touristy attraction. And I was like, wow, that was that was just eye opening to me of how, I don't want to say gentrification works, but just how like America kind of has just took something that was so brutally horrible and turned it into Manhattan, the heart of New York today. I just thought that was wild to me.
Yeah, right. Like, I think going back to this constant romanticizing of our history, and people don't realize the ugly truths of like what really happened in the spaces they are in to slaves, and to like this was the North we were talking about. Like New York is North, and,
Yeah.
and we still had this like ugly stuff happening. And so, that's why it's important for us to be doing our research and knowing true history, because you're not reading about that in a text. That's too ugly for America to bear.
Mm-hmm. He said one other thing. I don't know if you caught that or caught it when you were reading, but he said Bin Laden wasn't the first person to bring terrorism to Manhattan. And that's when he kind of talked about how it was a place where they sold slaves. And I was just like, bruh. Like when he made that connection, I was just like, wild.
Right.
It was just, I don't know. I was just taken aback by that.
Yeah. Um,
You know what? He talks about I'll go ahead.
I was just gonna say overall, his writing is a masterpiece. Like his writing is captivating and just insanely good. Definitely 5 stars.
Yeah, it keeps you engaged. Like you said, like what we talked about in the beginning, it wasn't that like we wanted to check out. It's like I wanted to stay locked in because I want every word had me captivated. Every word, every paragraph, I was in it. Like it was so beautifully written. You know, one of the themes and the ideas from the book is the beautiful struggle, and to see who he is today, how he's loving on his son and teaching his son about the world and allowing his son to see the world based on his struggles that his son may never actually have to go through truly is a beautiful struggle. And to see him, you know, being a director on Black Panther and all this stuff, or a writer, it's like the Black experience truly is a beautiful struggle. As hard and as ugly as some of the struggle is, we somehow figure out how to persevere and turn it into beauty, literally beauty from ashes.
Right. And I think also like I loved how vulnerable he was with his son. And like he even talked about how I don't want you to be hood. I don't want you to have to learn the street. Like I feel like most Black fathers that grow up as he did would want their sons to be rough and tough and like um hard with people. And like Ta-Nehisi was like, nah, like I want you to be in your emotions. I don't want you to even have to know um the struggle the way that I did. And like he even talked about like his son having privilege, but also just because of his body he doesn't have privilege, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, this is definitely one I think I would read again. Yes, 5 stars, 10 out of 10 would recommend for anybody to read. Anybody who's even curious about what the Black experience is like. He just words it so well, and not everybody's experience is like that. I will say that, but that is a great indication of overall what a Black experience in America, I would say Northeast, even the South, probably has to go through. So any of our listeners, go get the book. It is amazing. It's great on Audible as well. He reads it, I believe, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So another great episode, Tony. And I'm so glad we got to do this book club together. We are working on our next book. We will let you guys know what our next book will be. But this one it's going to be hard to cap, to be honest. I think whatever next one we get, we just have to keep leveling up from here. So, guys, go get the book Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates. Also, shout out to MSW Media for having us on their platform. Give us a like, a review. Go to our link tree. You can support us. If you want to be a part of our podcast or know anybody that wants to be a part of our podcast, our information is on our link tree. Until next time, y'all, be authentic in everything that you do. Peace.
Peace out.